Palestine. We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine.
This morning, we have someone who is rather controversial. And, you know, guys, I love to have those who speak their mind and speak the truth, no matter how controversial it is. I think that it's important for that the Most High have those that are out in the forefront that are speaking the truth. And so right now we have Rabbi Weiss here live with us here on YouTube. Rabbi, you have anything you want to say before we jump heads on into the interview here?
Well, I pray to the Almighty that he should bestow upon me his truth and his wisdom, that I may convey it eloquently, clearly, and that the words should go on the hearts of the people listening, and that should go into the hearts, that they should hear the message. And with God's help, we say in Arabic, inshallah, that we should bring it should bring to peace, and we should be glorifying the Almighty's name with that. So my father got married in the United States, and my mother was also born, blessed memory, was born also in Hungary, and I went to yeshivas, religious schools, and I grew up in it was basically an anti-Zionist community, and thank God, and I married into an anti-Zionist also family, and I moved from where I originally lived to Williamsburg, Brooklyn. That's where my wife's family is from, and there it is totally strongly anti-Zionist, that community. It's the largest concentration of religious families over there. It's right across from Manhattan. In fact, there's a bridge. It's called Williamsburg Bridge because Manhattan is like an island. It is an island, and so the bridge, one of the bridges, this George Washington Bridge, Brooklyn Bridge, and this Williamsburg Bridge. Williamsburg Bridge takes you right into the Jewish community, and it's, as I say, the largest religious community there. And there's not one single Israeli flag. Not one single Israeli flag, because they're very religious. It's the most religious community you will find in the United States, and there is not. And the idea is that being that they're very religious, they stand in opposition to the existence of the Zionist state. So basically, and so over there, I became I had married there, and I became more active in demonstrations, because the chief rabbi of Palestine, of Jerusalem, his name was Rabbi Teitelbaum of blessed memory, a very holy man, and he actually moved away from Jerusalem, moved to New York, and he urged and always advised people to move out of the occupied Palestine. They shouldn't be under the control of the Zionists. And he himself did that. He lived in New York, and he has hundreds of thousands of followers, a very great man. And there's many people around the world where you can go to Amsterdam, you can go to you can go to Antwerp, Belgium. There's a very religious community over there, and there's Satmar, and then you go to London, and you go to Montreal, and you go any place with the very religious community, you will find his students and his schools that basically from him. He was called the Satmar Rabbi because he came originally from Romania, from Satmar. Also, he was in the camps, and then he was and he, thank God, he came out alive. And so he was very strong in the issue that we have to go out in the streets and inform the world that the Zionists are falsely using the name of Judaism, and that we oppose Zionism in its entirety. And God help, I'll try to explain as best I could the issue, what it's all about. But basically, so him and invariably around the world, the very religious communities stands in opposition to the existence of the state, and of course all the crimes that they do, that they perpetrate against the Palestinian people.
That's awesome. Yeah, and, it's very interesting. We had a great conversation, over the phone, just kind of talking about some things. I shared with you some things about the Limba Jews, and you showed me some things about the Orthodox Jews and things like that. And just hearing you talk about how it was encouraged by the rabbis to move out of the land, and that's very interesting because there are many who, and I mentioned to you about the Israelites in Dimona, and I know you weren't too familiar about it, but there are many who believe in going into the land, and so and it's not everybody. Of course, you have pockets here and there of people, but that's very interesting to see that a group within the Orthodox side, because many who are Orthodox, many do live in the land of Israel and things like that. But it's very interesting to hear someone. That's why I had to get you on to talk about this, because it's almost like an oxymoron to find a Jewish rabbi who is against Zionism. I'm hoping that I don't even get flagged for saying Zionism, but to see that, to talk about it. And we're going to get into certain things. We're going to get into conversation about scripture and things like that, which brings the justification of why the protests or the speaking against the state is significant. And so when we do that, you have anything you want to share before we transition?
Yeah, I would just like to point out that even though he urged, and he was the chief rabbi. Now, Israel has what they call a rabbinate and a chief rabbi that traipses around the world and speaks in the name of supposedly the Jewish people. But we look at this as a farce. They're masquerading, and in order to legitimize their state, they keep on looking at angles. They use the Star of David, the symbols. The name Israel itself is Jacob in the Torah, and they're using religious symbols and issues in order to legitimize a purely materialistic state that has nothing to do with God, with religion. It's a totally I would say, what we say, like a selfish political creation that they're trying to do, and yet they need to get the backing and the support from the world, from the non-religious, from the non-Jewish, from the Christians, and from the and from the Jewish people, wherever they can get it. So therefore, they use this facade of religion, and they made a rabbinate and a chief rabbi. And whenever they want to destroy the homes of Palestinians or whatever, they'll have the rabbi write a check. In other words, they'll sign their names on a document, because, let's say, you're not allowed to cut any fruit trees. It's against the Jewish law. And but they can go and they'll cut off all the olive trees, that's so precious to the Palestinian people. But I would just want to say that so that's their rabbinate, which is a farce. But there is a rabbinate, and there was a rabbinate that was existing, and it was for hundreds and hundreds of years. There were Jewish community. That Jewish community was much smaller than the Muslim community, but there was a solid Jewish community, a God-fearing, very God-fearing community for hundreds of years living in Palestine, and so they had the rabbis to represent them, and they had a chief rabbi, and there was Rabbi Sonnenfeld, who in the 1920s, you see, Zionism started their movement sort of in the 1890s, and they came up and they started coming up to the Holy Land, to Palestine in that time, and they started settling there. And when they did, so the chief rabbi of the religious community, which was basically the whole community, because there was no such thing almost as a non-religious Jew at that time, his name was Rabbi Sonnenfeld of blessed memory. And he met with the king of Transjordan, and he put out letters. We are now site NKUSA, Zionist.org, you can see we have letters, and they will put in the advertisements in the Arabic speaking newspapers, where they declare that we have no want, we have no goal, we have no want, we're not interested, of course, God forbid, to take any land from the Palestinian people or from that. This is a picture of Rabbi Zonfeld.
So you're telling me, Rabbi, that Rabbi Zonfeld literally said that we have no authority to take the land, and we're building up to 1948 here, doing the Balfour Declaration.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Rabbi.
Right. Now, and then afterwards, if you ask if I'm telling you that, I'll tell you this is the picture of a meeting. This was after he passed away, that Rabbi Sonnenfeld. There was the next chief rabbi of the religious community. Like I said, we're not, because people hear chief rabbi, they think of the Zionist rabbinate. We have nothing to do with that. We're talking about the rabbinate that exists till today, that represents the religious community that is anti-Zionist. The next one after was Rabbi Dushinsky of blessed memory. Now, this Rabbi Dushinsky, actually in 1947, when did the United Nations ratify the state? 1948. So a year prior to that, Rabbi Dushinsky, now this is taken out of the documents of the United Nations, and I'm quoting, this is the same picture in small, this is Rabbi Dushinsky, and he said, and I'm quoting one of the sentences there, we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. Now, this is a very religious rabbi, and he's representing the core, the essence of the whole communities that were there for hundreds of years. And he is telling the United Nations that without any type of causes or anything, he's saying clearly, we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine.
So he's there at the United Nations,
right?
Basically, almost in a protest,
exactly.
in stating
the United Nations, understandably, because the United Nations was in New York and so forth, and Geneva. They have their other, but it was the delegation that came up to Jerusalem, to Al-Quds at the time, and they went and they pleaded with them that you see that there is a group of people, the Zionists, and they're portraying themselves as representatives of the communities when it's totally false. They have no right to speak in our name. They're powerful because they had the backing. They came from Europe and they were well connected with the governments in Britain and throughout Europe and Vienna and so forth. But he said they have, what is that? We're standing here with Jews that are living here. Who are these people? The Zionists. The Zionists were mostly total heretics. They despised their religion. They went away from the religion. They didn't keep the Ten Commandments, and they decided to make a type of ersatz Judaism. Another thing, and that they should have their homeland, they should have their own sovereignty, and that they should be able to do what they want, and that according to their whims, whatever they like. So, but if you can look at the picture of this is David Ben Gurion, the famous of the father, one of the fathers of Zion, the first prime minister of the state. Reading the Declaration of Independence in 1948 in Independence Hall. Now, if you look, people can Google it, and you'll see that none of them, you don't see a covered head. They're all going with their bare heads whenever a Jewish person is required to cover that. Now, imagine if you would go and see a Muslim leader, one of the Ayatollahs or a sheikh or an imam. I mean, and you're going to see him. Totally without a beard, without all the, whatever. You'll go to the Pope, won't dress as a Christian. I mean, you have the Jewish people, everyone, all the rabbis. Look at the pictures, all the rabbis with beards, with covering the head, because it's required to choke, because we cover our head to remember that we have God above us.
Right.
In fact, we call it a yarmulke. We wear a covering of our head all the time, and the hats we go and out or whatever, but in the home we wear a yarmulke. That means Yorei Malka, we fear God. Yarmulke means Yorei Malka, fearing. Malka means the king. So the farce and the hypocrisy of it all is they're speaking and they're making a state, supposedly a Jewish state, and where do they have any connection to Judaism? The only connection is that they're fighting it. I mean, the Jews around the world let's say, for instance, this is a picture that we have. This is in front of the White House when Netanyahu came to visit. And this is just one picture, and you can see tens of thousands. This is in front of the White House. So you have the very large communities that are still living in Palestine. They never gave up their lives in Palestine. They live there. They live in Jerusalem, and they're anti-Zionist to the core. They stand in opposition to its existence. They never accepted the existence of the state. This was from an encroached a group of people called Zionists. They're rebels against God. We look at them as they are heretics. We look at them as that, and so we have nothing to do with them, and we don't go voting in their elections. We are invisibles. We don't believe in them. In fact, when they get arrested, a lot of my colleagues constantly, because we refuse to serve in the IDF. There's mandatory service in the IDF, in the Israeli Defense Force, and our boys and girls refuse to serve there. There's no way they'll give their lives rather than serve. They get arrested, they get beaten, they get here's a picture, for instance, of a girl. This is when it's ongoing. They get arrested. We make demonstrations. They eventually have to release them. But here's, let's say, a picture behind bars. They put on, to demean them, they put on Israeli uniforms behind bars.
So these they are
just crying, as you see.
Right. They are anti-Zionists, and they're anti against the state of Israel. So just to be clear, we have people constantly coming in. We have over 50 people in right now, and more are coming in and many of them who are just not coming on probably don't understand what's going on or whatever. But to be clear, just to state this, just to be clear, you, Rabbi Weiss, you are not for Zionism, and you're not for the 1948 Balfour Declaration and establishment of what we know as the state of Israel. You came up and you have a group or a community of people that are anti-Zionist and anti-state of Israel. Is that correct?
That is partly correct.
Okay.
I don't have a community. The core of Jewish religion is antithetical, is contradictory to Zionism. And with God's help, I'll explain that. And therefore, as I keep on showing, there's the chief rabbi of the Jewish community from Palestine pleaded with the United Nations that we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state.